Did you lose power or anything, Terry?
No, not at all. But I haven't been home that long.
We had it blink out here at the Library Services Center. Just long enough to knock everybody's computers off.
Oh no, the storm didn't last that long here. Maybe half an hour,
Yeah,
I think. But
they're still trying to clean up the trees from the last storm. So we really,
Hey guys, just a heads up, we are officially live on YouTube.
okay, thank you.
I think another storm's supposed to come a little bit later, from what I understand, but maybe not. Who knows? Oh, turn this off.
Hello, EJ.
Hello, good evening.
Better. Hi, EJ.
Hi.
Hello, this is Joe running the Zoom. Just letting you guys know we are live on YouTube, and I am curious who just joined from their phone so I can put your name in here correctly.
Joe, it's Angie Gilbert. I just did.
Gotcha. Thanks, Angie.
You're welcome.
Joe, is it possible to raise that just a little?
That better?
I was actually wondering if it's possible to raise the outer outline of the box, but maybe that's not possible.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Pat.
Hi, Pat.
Good evening.
Hello.
Like that? Jackie, did that do it? Just to get rid of the toolbar?
Hello.
That helped. Uh-huh. There's about maybe it's just my screen. I have about an inch of wasted space up here, but that might be as far as it goes.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure how much more I can do.
Mhm. Okay. Hmm. Welcome, Russell.
Hello there. Joey, you have to warm stuff up, okay? Make sure you get an applesauce too. Hello, everyone.
I hope it,
Hello.
Hi,
hello.
hi, Chidi.
Can
Hello,
everybody,
how
can
are you?
everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, Jess, how you doing?
Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, good evening.
Evening.
Angie, if you can let me know when we have the full complement of our board.
Joe, are you asking me?
Yes, Angie, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I can't see it. I'm watching the YouTube feed.
Oh, okay.
Right now, I've got Judge Salinas, Ray Biederman, TD, Pat Payne, Terry Jett, and Dr. Murtada. And so I think we're missing
Mr. Bixby,
Bigsby.
is that the only one?
And a slew of folks from the IndyPL as well.
If somebody could let me know when Curtis is on, please.
Just wanted to say good evening, everyone. That storm was something else. Trees blown down like
Really?
crazy. I
Oh
drove
my
past.
goodness.
Curtis,
Can you hear me?
Oh,
no, Judge.
I drove
Oh.
past the Crown Hill Cemetery, getting back to my office, and the trees were blown down in Crown Hill Cemetery. Just
Oh my God.
unbelievable.
Oh my goodness.
well, I'm
Big,
glad.
huge trees blown down.
I'm glad you're okay, and I hope everyone else is okay as well. It is 6:32. I think we have a full complement of the board. Angie, do we mind taking a roll, please?
Yes, sir.
Oh, hang on, hang
Mr.
on, hang on.
Biederman,
Here?
No, go ahead. It's okay, Angie, go ahead.
Nope. Ray's here.
okay,
Race here.
okay. Did we say we did have Mr. Bixby or not yet?
We do have Curtis, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Biederman,
Here?
Mr. Bixby,
Here.
Dr. Jett,
Here.
Dr. Matata,
Here,
Ms. Payne,
Here.
Reverend Robinson,
Here.
and Judge Salinas.
Here, and I guess I skipped over one. I'm gonna call this meeting to order. So we do have a quorum. The chair recognizes a quorum. We're going to have the branch manager's report. Is Ms. Johnson on the line, or not on the line, on our call?
Yes.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. She's with Martindale Brightwood branch, and she's going to provide for us a much anticipated report. Thank you for joining us today.
You're muted.
You're muted, Ms. Johnson. You're muted, Ms. Johnson. We can't hear you.
Thank you.
Here you
I
go.
was trying to adjust my volume because I couldn't hear many of you very well, but I think we're good now. Thank you all for having me. I would say welcome, but Judge Salinas and all of you members of the board, I appreciate this invitation to join you this evening. So the Martindale Brightwood branch has experienced quite a few moments within our transition that we are actually able to celebrate. One is that we have maintained strong and consistent partnerships with both the Martindale Brightwood Education Zone, which is fostered by the Edna Martin Christian Center, as well as the One Voice Martindale Brightwood Neighborhood Collaborative. We have also grown very strong in our Grow with Google grant program, where we have been designated to circulate both hotspots in Google Chromebooks. We found that this has been something that was a much needed resource for our community and our patrons. And they're very appreciative, and it's a beautiful program that our branch has been able to sustain. During the time away, during our pandemic, my public services associates, as well as myself, we collaborated to provide some virtual e-learning assistance. And this was also a partnership endeavor that we had with the Martindale Brightwood Education Zone. We were able to attend a virtual meeting and provide them with e-resources available through the Indianapolis Public Library to assist them in their e-learning endeavors. The one great celebratory event that we hosted back on June 19th was the library opening event of our new facility. That was a wonderful event where we hosted community members and members of the board, as well as staff within the IndyPL system to come and attend. And we had 4 different ribbon cutting ceremonies so that no one felt left out and everyone was able to enjoy that celebratory moment. And then we opened for public service on Saturday, June 20th. That was also, it was a wonderful occasion, even though members of the public were not all able to join us on that Friday for our opening event. We were able to welcome them back to their library and provide full services to them on that day. On, I believe it was July 7th, Alex Moore, who's my public services associate for the adult collection and for the adult patrons, she offered a research and writing workshop for an English class offered at Martin University. And this will, we believe it'll eventually become a sustained program within Martindale Brightwood branch and the Martin University partnership, where we are providing that type of assistance and encouragement for just academic growth within that partnership. On August 8th, I will be attending the Him by Her Collegiate School for the Arts community event, which is a back to school event where they are, promoting some of the community resources available to their students. And we seek to establish a new partnership with the school as they seem to be bright and beaming in this community, and they're seeking to pretty much just provide some of the support that their students and their educational personnel need at this time. And then Martindale Brightwood met with Julia Moore and artist Brittany Box of the Art Council of Indianapolis to establish a partnership and to present a temporary installation of an art piece that will be here on the library's property. We have settled on the location to be right next to the bus stop here on 25th Street. So that way we can attract some potential patrons who are not, as of yet, not engaged with the library, but also kind of promote how connected we are with our city and with our community within that space as well.
Anything further, Ms. Johnson?
Not at the moment. I actually wanted to give you all an opportunity to ask questions about some of the other highlights posted there.
I did want to say I was there at one of the ribbon cutting ceremonies, and it's an amazing facility. I was just so impressed, not only by the location, the facility, but the staff. Good job.
Thank you.
Board, any questions or comments?
No questions, but yeah, it's really nice. So thank you for all your hard work.
Same here. I had an opportunity to attend both, the one for the board as well as the one for the community. And it was lovely. Your staff showed regard and respect for everyone coming in, young people and senior citizens. It's very, very positive. And your leadership is making a wonderful difference there. You know how to engage, and it was just beautiful. Thank you.
I concur. Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. God bless, okay?
Johnson,
Thank you.
I haven't been there yet, so I still have something to look forward to.
Yes.
I will do.
And we looked forward to your visit. I do want to say that it has been quite a privilege to serve within this community and to serve as a team member to the Martindale Brightwood staff. They are a wonderful team, and I just look forward to what's to come.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I concur. Okay, well, thank you so much again, Ms. Johnson, and best
Thank
of
you.
luck. And hopefully we'll get you on the rotation as soon as this crisis is over in our country and in our city.
Yes. Thank you.
We're going to move on to item number 4 on our list, public comments and communications. In lieu of the extreme emergency facing our city and our state, and in keeping with the executive order issued by the governor, the public will not be invited to physically attend this meeting. As we all know, we're having this by Zoom. However, we do have the ability for the public to listen and view at the regular meeting via live stream on YouTube. We were provided with 2 letters that were asked to be read into the record. And I'm going to ask Ms. Gilbert to go ahead and read those into the record if she can for us. Ms. Gilbert?
Yes. This letter is from the Libraries Union, AFSCME, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Ron Richmond, I believe, is the gentleman that's over. It says, AFSCME Council 962, representing Local 3395, Indy Library workers, in conversation with their union leadership, are alarmed with the lack of coordination in the handling of recent events occurring, specifically the recent hosting of a 200-guest wedding at Central Library this past Saturday, July 25th, 2020, and the announcement of an employee at the Central Library branch testing positive for the coronavirus. Our concerns are heightened due to the following statements. It has been shared that management knew months ago this wedding was going to take place and had plenty of time to inform the library staff and address any concerns. Additionally, our members feel that whenever a person is told they need quarantine, the staff members in that work area should be told immediately as well. The union believes in order for staff to feel secure, the library leadership needs to do the following. 1, consider canceling any large events. 2, if any events cannot be canceled, employees in the branch need to be informed as soon as possible and given the opportunity to stay home without receiving an occurrence. 3, management should create a checklist signed off by Sunshine that all cleaning has taken place and the area in question is safe to open. 4, when an employee leaves work to begin quarantine, any staff working alongside are immediately informed. 5, we would like to see a standardized procedure developed in coordination with the union regarding notifications, quarantine requirements, and documentation. 6, those who worked alongside an employee told to quarantine should schedule to be tested and have their temperature taken immediately. They are to be given time off to do so. 7, temperature of staff and patrons will be administered before entering the building. 8, when an employee has tested positive for the coronavirus, the library should immediately revisit the use of curbside and online reference services only and back to working in teams for 2 weeks. That ends that particular letter.
I do believe we have one more as well.
Yes. The other letter is from Jordan Hunt. Mr. Hunt is a public services librarian at Central Library. And he says, a statement to the board of the Minneapolis Public Library and to the general public. This past Saturday, the library was unable to cancel a contract for a wedding and failed to move the wedding to another venue. Despite staff not being informed that events of any kind would be part of the library's reopen from quarantine, leadership of the Indianapolis Public Library decided to continue with the wedding with no significant changes to normal business hours or procedures. There was very little effort made to seek input from staff who would be exposed to caterers, the wedding party, and others in the building before on Saturday. Indeed, to my knowledge, no one on the board was told about this event a few days before the wedding on this past Saturday. The library has had a county order that prevents wedding parties this size didn't go into effect until 2 days later. Many staff at Central stuck around the building for 15 minutes to an hour after closing at 5 p.m. to finish their work for the day. I was told by Jackie Needus that this presented no danger to staff and that I wasn't working the event. So I was being too sensitive and that perhaps I was unwell emotionally. Perhaps
Angie,
equally,
Angie,
yes,
I'm
yes.
so sorry. There's a great deal
Yeah,
of
there is.
feedback and there's a great deal of interruption. I can't describe what it's coming from. I'm not a tech savvy person in that regard, but you're breaking up and we can't get the full message. Is there,
Okay. So let me see. Maybe let me move around a bit here. Just a moment. Let's see. Let me go back to.
Yeah, if you go up maybe a couple of lines from where we stopped.
Yes. Let's go back up to many staff at Central stick around the building for 15 minutes or so to an hour. Is that better?
Yes.
Can you hear that better? Okay.
Yes.
Many staff at Central stick around the building for 15 minutes to an hour after closing at 5 p.m. to finish their work for the day. I was told by Jackie Needus that this presented no danger to staff and that I wasn't working the event. So I was being too sensitive and that perhaps I was unwell emotionally. Perhaps equally as distressing, the library released a statement on our official website stating that while a staff member at Central had been diagnosed with COVID-19, effective measures had been implemented to mitigate risk from exposure. One of the measures listed was a cap on the amount of time individual library patrons could spend in the building in a single day. The number listed in the library statement was an hour. Staff and the public were told patrons would be limited to an hour when the library began our phased reopening. I believe each of the board members here tonight believe this to be the policy of the Indianapolis Public Library. I can assure you the policy of limiting patrons to 1 hour in the building per day is not being followed at Central Library. Patrons are being asked to limit their stay when they enter the building, but there is no effort being made to enforce the rule. It's more of a suggestion. Many aren't following the suggestion. Both of these developments show a cavalier disregard for the reality of working life at Central Library. Staff have lost faith in Jackie Needus' management of the library's response to COVID-19. I suggest immediately surveying staff for their feelings about the library's response to COVID-19. I also strongly suggest members of the library's executive council spend time at service desks during busy hours in order to convey to staff the safety of public-facing work during a pandemic. That is the end of that letter.
Okay. Does anyone have anything to say?
Yeah, I certainly do. Did anyone on the board know about the wedding being scheduled previous to it occurring this week?
Yeah. Well, I sent an email dealing with that and expressing my concern about it.
But did you have knowledge of the wedding before this week?
Not before
Before the beginning of the week that it occurred?
No, it wasn't before the beginning.
I had no idea that the wedding was occurred. I actually was under the impression that all of the events had been canceled. And so that did catch me off guard when someone mentioned it to me. So I do understand, I think we have now changed to that all of the weddings and large events are going to be canceled. And I think that that's a good thing and we need to keep that in place. Also, I think we need to, in the future, consider whether or not we need to even continue the practice of having weddings at the library, because I think that that brings up some disparities issues that that need to be addressed and that we are focusing on, especially with regard to race and equity. I also want to know, was there anyone that was there to ensure at the wedding that everyone had face mask on at all times except for when they were actually eating.
It's my, well, first to answer your first question, I became aware of the wedding during that email exchange. But it's my understanding, but I'm talking to Jackie, that it's not a normal process to let the board know of events that are coming up. Now, it's also my understanding that because the county moved from one phase to the next, and we were in phase 3, Jackie, or 4?
We're in 4.
So in 4, that's why the wedding that we had a contract with was permitted to go forward. Before, when we were in different phases, events of that size would not have been allowed. It's also my understanding that Jackie consulted with Dr. Kane in terms of the safeguards that the library was going to have in place, and she was okay, and she approved those safeguards and going forward. We did have 2 employees there that were monitoring people going in. If they didn't have a mask, we would give them one. And let me see what else. And as far as canceling events in the future, because of the new policy that we have, or that the mayor implemented, I think that's affecting our existing ability to have these kind of events. Now, whether we want to reevaluate whether have them at all, and as you mentioned, Dr. Jett, as to bring in whether there's an issue of race and equity in terms of our community having access to the library, I'm open to have that discussion. But as far as the event, I think we had a contract, and the phase we were in allowed it. And so, and we did have 2 employees there that were monitoring the event. And it's also my understanding is the event was after hours. It was not during the course of the day. At no time during the library, from what I was told, was our library at Central Library we were never at max as far as the number of people allowed during the day. The caterers were there, from my understanding, either by 4 or 4:30, setting up. The public was not allowed in for the wedding. We're going to the event not till 5:45, if I heard that correctly, if I understood that correctly. And so there may have been, and the caterers were all wearing masks from what I've been told. But again, the important part of them being there is we were not at capacity at the library. And so that is one of the important focuses that I had as far as questions, we were not at our limited capacity as well for that day. Let's see what else.
Let me bring up one other point. I mean, we're not operating under normal conditions, and so it shouldn't be whether or not we're notified about all events that are taking place right now. I think, we need to be communicated with, and so that we have an awareness of what's happening. But I wanted to bring up one of the points on that Ron Richmond brought up, asked me about reporting about staff kind of indicating whether or not they are feeling sick or something. At my place of employment at Butler, every day we have to, when we go in, we actually have to go through it's a self-assessment, but a health check where we indicate online to the institution whether or not we have a fever or have any other symptoms that are taking place in relationship to COVID, or whether we've been exposed within the last 14 days to someone or been tested for it. And then once we answer these questions online before we go in, we're then either cleared to go into the institution, or of course, if you answer yes to one of those questions, then of course you're denied. And I think it works for 2 reasons. One, it allows us, the institution, to keep track of where something might arise, where someone else is to get sick. It makes contact tracing a lot easier, and it prevents us from having situations where we have to respond very quickly and don't have the knowledge of actually who is sick. And also it holds the employees also accountable to that extent for recognizing that if you are feeling sick or something, you think you have possibly have been exposed, then you're not going to come into work and expose others. Now that brings up this other additional issue with regard to why someone, and I'm not blaming this employee for coming in, but why they would make the choice to come in, recognizing that they actually have been exposed or may be feeling some symptoms. And I think that might have to do with the policy of, occurrences, or feeling that there might possibly be penalized as a result, and having some sensitivity there. So perhaps
Excuse
that.
me, I'm sorry. I don't know about, I'm still relatively new, not quite, but I don't know about the policy of occurrences. Can that be elaborated a little bit more in a bit? I just want to make sure that none of our staff are being at all penalized if they are not going, but also if not coming into work. How do we make sure that they don't get that, the thing called occurrences, but
Yeah,
also,
it's the fear of that.
yeah, I see. And the other piece that the caller stated in regards to the tracking and compliance, how are those patrons that come in being tracked for compliance as well? I think that's a major issue that was brought up, but.
Hang on. Dr. Jed, I'm not sure if you were done or not.
Sorry, Terry.
Oh, yes, I was done.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
My sincere apologies.
Oh, no, I was done. I think Jackie was raising her hand, was going to.
Yeah, but Dr. Montalvo, are you done as well, doctor?
The caller, the letter that Angie read spoke to a number of different points. And I would like for us to think and discuss those. The whole idea of being able to deal with events that are ongoing and the changes. I would like to see the board be very proactive and not reactive, or saying, okay, this is what the city is just saying. How do we become even more proactive, knowing that there is liability for so many people who come into the library? And I'm very concerned about the points that the person had submitted.
Yeah, I concur. I will say everything we've done as a board, to my knowledge, has been with the approval of Dr. Kane. Hang on, I wasn't done yet. As far as our reopening process, as far as how we started, we got her approval and her okay with every phase of how we opened up. Now that is a part, and even with this latest event at the library, she okayed the process. Go ahead, ma'am. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I understand. I'm not talking about Dr. Kane's approval. I'm talking about, and I think that's very important, I'm talking about this changing dynamic that's happening very rapidly in this city and in this region and across the country. And while our public health officials, brilliant Dr. Kane, is right on point, these things are changing so rapidly that our staff, our patrons, and everyone that's involved is on standby to see how things are changing. Even our public schools are changing rapidly, trying to decide what they're going to do. And so I think that is right at the forefront of not only what Dr. Kane is thinking, but all of us must do to protect our staff, to protect the patrons, and protect others. So that's where I'm coming from, being far more proactive and not just sitting back waiting for someone else to approve a process that is in flux at this moment in time.
I concur.
Jackie, did you want to say anything?
I just want to clarify to Dr. Jett's question about occurrences. We have suspended the policy of occurrences back in, I'm going to say April. And we have made it very clear to employees that if they feel at all unwell, we urge them not to come in, and there is no penalty for that. There is no requirement of notice or anything. If you don't feel well, please don't come in. That message has been delivered on a number of different channels.
I'm going to concur that we need to be our own separate, because we oversee the library, and that's a different entity. We are guided, though, by the principles that Dr. Kane outlines. If we want to be stricter than what she recommends, that's a different ballgame. But we cannot. She does lead in this. Absolutely. And because I got kids, school-age kids, and that, and it's affecting that as well. So the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, is we look at the medical advice. We're not going to, and we follow that. And if we want to go stricter, that's within our province of the library.
Yeah, and Judge, if I can interject for just a moment. I mean, I think that a board of 7 of us talking once a month about what we should or shouldn't do is fine and well, but I think the people on the ground, including Jackie, have a much better sense of what's going on the day to day. And I mean, I'll just say that I feel that I've been up to date on every step of this situation along the way. I think that Jackie and her team has done a great job of transmitting that information, and we're able to sit here today and have this conversation only because of the hard work that everyone's put in to get us here. You know, I think that we've listened to what Dr. Kane has said. We've followed those guidelines, and I think that our policies are in line with that. Now, are we going to make everyone happy every instance? No, we're not. But I think that we need to take a look at this on the whole, and as we have done, and make the decisions with that information in mind.
Well, we've got 2 letters and we need to respond to them. And we've got a series of points that have been raised and a lot of concerns brought up. And you may be in conversation once a month, but I'm in conversation with others a lot more than that. And so we, you know, have a responsibility for policy and for oversight. That's why we were appointed by our governing bodies. And so it's important that we ask these questions.
Thank you very much for telling me what I'm supposed to do.
It's important that we
really
ask
appreciate
questions. Yeah, well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. Let's be, Doctor. Let's be civil. Come on, guys.
I am being civil because I am listening to the staff and the concerns that they're raising and making sure that they're heard.
Yeah.
That's
so is everyone. Thank you.
Dr. Payne?
Did you call on me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much, Judge. I have 2 questions. One is, did Dr. Kane approve the weddings beforehand? And the other one is, in the letter, it spoke about the hour when people come into the library, they're asked not to stay longer than an hour. And the concern was that that was not being monitored as it should be. So I just wanted to have a response to those 2 questions. Did Dr. Kane approve the weddings also?
Jackie?
Dr. Kane approved us resuming weddings when we reached the 200 number that had been approved. And when they passed the ruling on Thursday, they specifically said the reduction would take place effective today, and therefore our wedding for Saturday was still allowed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We clarified that because we thought if that wedding was not going to be allowed, then we should try to work with the caterer to find a location in Hamilton County. But under the circumstances, since Dr. Kane's ruling did not take effect until today, we had to honor our contract.
I'm hoping and praying that nothing comes from that. What about the hour?
The hour is a guideline that we put in our material so that if our buildings got crowded and we began to reach the limitations on how long you could stay, then we would have that to use to be able to ask people to leave. Our buildings are not reaching anywhere near the occupancy levels that we've set up, which are actually lower than what Dr. Kane allowed us to have. We already set levels that were lower in an attempt to be more proactive, as several of you have suggested. So that hour is there to give us a guideline to use. If we get too crowded, we can say to people, you've been here over an hour, you need to leave so others can come in.
Thank
It
you.
hasn't been happening.
Any other questions or comments on this particular topic?
I just have a quick question, real quick for Jackie. Jackie, when you said that it was suspended back in April about the occurrences, was that information relayed back to the union?
It was certainly relayed to all members of the staff, which would include the president of the union, who is a member of the staff. Yes.
Okay, because I was just wondering, because the letter that we received, I guess read tonight, I didn't know if like there was a grievance process, if that was already relayed to the union, if that was relayed back to management before coming here, or how is that information disseminated prior to, again, to,
Mr.
I guess,
Bixby, of the 8 points that are in this letter, I believe 7 or 8 of them actually reflect a lack of understanding of what we currently have in place, because we have canceled large events other than that wedding Saturday night. And we have, in fact, we have a cleaning checklist. We have followed the notification protocol about staff that is in keeping with the HIPAA requirements. And I can go through the list. There's a number of these that if they had come and talked to me first before they wrote the letter to the board, we might have been able to provide quite a bit of clarification.
Okay, that's understandable. That's what I was kind of tracking through the email correspondence earlier today, but thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Curtis. Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the June 16th executive session. The minutes have been provided. Is there a motion to approve the executive session held on June 16th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the matter? If not, Angie, can you have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approved.
Dr. Jett,
Approve.
Dr. Matata,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approve.
Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
and Judge Salinas.
Approved. Thank you, board. I do
Thank you.
appreciate the motion is carried. We'll move on to the regular meeting. Today is the regular meeting of the June 22nd. As far as the minutes, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting for June 22nd?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the minutes for the June 22nd meeting? Seeing none, Angie, can you have a reading of the roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman,
Approved.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approved.
Dr. Jett,
Approve.
Dr. Matata,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approve.
Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
Judge Salinas.
Approved. The motion carried.
Thank you.
We'll now go to the committee reports. We have the Finance Committee. Ms. Payne, our chair.
EJ? There you are.
Good evening. Hi. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am
Good
going to try to
Good
share
evening.
my screen. Okay. I'm going to quickly go over our treasurer's report. We have 3 items. Actually, we have 4 items. I'm going to go over our treasurer's report real quick, try to save on time. This is for the month of June, and so it's kind of a good indicator for us of how the year is going, because it's halfway through the year, obviously. And for us, this was a key date in terms of our property tax revenue. So as you can see, our property tax revenues, we've collected about 47% of our originally estimated revenues for the year. So we felt pretty good about that, as we were expecting much less at this point, because penalties were waived, as you guys know, for 60 days. So we were thinking that we would have a large amount of uncollected taxes until July 11, which is 60 days past the original due date of May 11th. So collecting 47% at this point in time, which is 3% less than half, was a pretty good indicator for us. And so we revised our projections such that we are now projecting for the year, because originally we were projecting a 10% delinquency in property tax revenues. We're now projecting a 4%. 4% of the taxes will be delinquent. And so we'll collect 96% based on our new projections for the year. And so hopefully we will have a small surplus based on that. The rest of our revenues are pretty much on track. And as you know, we collected, well, I shouldn't say the rest of our revenues are on track. As you know, our fines and fees are down, and that's because we've suspended fines during this COVID period. Also, our in-branch revenues are down as well. But we did collect the health insurance reimbursement earlier in the year of $1 million, and that's kind of propped us up. So overall, our revenues are at 50% of our original estimate for the year. And then on the expenditure side, overall, we're at 39% of our revised budget, which is pretty low. That's compared to last year, we were at 45% total spent. Our salaries and benefits is pretty much on track in terms of what we had last year. We had spent about 47% of our budget last year. We spent 46% of our budget at this time this year. And then our supplies are also pretty much on track based on what we spent last year. The place where we're seeing a big decrease is the other services and charges, and that's spread out in a lot of categories. We're seeing a decrease primarily because of the closure of the branches. So we have savings in utilities, but we also had savings in insurance, snow removal, repairs and maintenance that we didn't think was critical. So we've repaired anything critical, but any nice to haves we've delayed. So that's seen a significant reduction. And then there's security for the time that we were closed, as well as outside printing. So we are on track in terms of our revised 2020 projections. And I think that we'll end the year with a very small surplus if things continue on this trajectory. So that is all I have for the treasurer's report. Are there any questions?
No.
Does any of the board members have questions?
None here.
Okay. Any discussion on the report? Hearing none or seeing none? Is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. Angie, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman,
Approved.
Mr. Bixby,
Approved.
and Dr. Jett,
Approved.
Dr. Matada,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approved.
Reverend Robinson,
Uh-oh.
and Judge Salinas.
Approved. Did everybody hear the Reverend Robinson?
No, where'd he go?
Reverend?
I'm very sorry. I was muted. I said approved, but I was muted. I'm sorry.
Oh.
All right, we got it. Oh, it's just someone had a question. No.
I know, I'm like, oh no. Well, I'm happy to answer questions.
No, we're good. It's a unanimous approval of the report. You do have a couple more items, correct?
Yes, I do. So my next item is another review of our 2021 budget. We tried to present this to you enough time so that if you have some input, you can share those with us. If you have questions,
Can you make it bigger?
we can. I can. I was trying to show the whole page, but let me try. Okay.
Sorry, thank you.
No problem. All right. So we tried to present it to you a couple times. So we presented you an initial look at our preliminary budget in June. And tonight we've gone a little more into detail. So we have a detailed line item budget for you to look at. And then August will be our public hearing, August committee meeting. And then at the August board meeting, we'll ask for your adoption of the budget. We have advertised this budget. So this is the maximum budget. We've advertised it, or we sent it to the paper. It hasn't been advertised. It will be advertised on the 31st, as well as on the 7th, because we have to advertise 10 days prior to the public hearing. So I just wanted to disclose that as well. We are following all of our legal procedures in terms of the budget process. So this gives you an overall summary of what the DLGF approved funds look like for 2021 compared to 2020. So for the operating fund, we're asking for approximately a 3% increase in our budget from last year. And then our debt service fund has a much bigger increase. But as I've told you guys in the past, this is the case this year, we're putting in a very large anticipated debt service payment amount for the 2020 bond issue that will close in November. And so when we do sell those bonds, we will adjust that debt service payment, and we'll make sure that the tax rate is at the tax rate promised to the city county council, which is 0.0318 per $100 of assessed value. So we will not go over that amount. So we'll structure the debt such that we stay there. But we have advertised an anticipated debt service amount of $5 million to give us cushion in case anything were to happen. But the DLGF will not allow us to have any more than what our actual debt service turns out to be. So our tax rate in the debt service fund is based on our actual debt service payments for 2021, which I'll show you the detail for a little bit further down. And then in our LIRF, which is our Library Improvement Reserve Fund, and actually I apologize, I thought we had 600,000 in 2020, but maybe that was the prior year. I will check that and let you know if that's incorrect. But we do not have anything budgeted this year in the Library Improvement Reserve Fund. This fund is solely funded from the operating fund. So if we have something to spend out of that fund, we transfer cash. We have to budget for it and transfer the cash into this Library Improvement Reserve Fund. So it does not have revenues of its own. Same with the rainy day fund. It does not have revenues of its own. It does not have a tax rate of its own, but we have to get the budget approved. And so we have $3 million budgeted here, and that is strictly for cash flow timing in terms of our construction projects. So we will sell bonds for our construction projects, but we want to time it such that we're paying the least amount of interest. So we want to be able to use our rainy day fund until we absolutely need to sell bonds. And then we sell bonds at that point and reimburse our rainy day fund. Yeah. So this is just cash flow timing, but we need an approved appropriation to spend money. And so that's what that's for. And so I will go down to the detailed budget and talk through the revenue assumptions that we're making, just so that you guys can see the numbers as I'm talking through them. So for the property tax revenue, we base our levy on the state maximum growth quotient. That's a statewide percentage given to all local government units. And it's based on the last 6-year average of the non-farm personal income. And so we had a really good average because the last 6 years have had pretty good growth. So we were getting into this phase where we were dropping out all the bad years, and we're going to go into a period of having higher percentage growth because the average of the last 6 years or the last couple of years were pretty good, but 2020 threw that all off. Anyway, that's for 2021. So in 2020, our maximum growth quotient is 4.2%, which is the highest it's been in a couple of years. So that's the good news. The bad news is when you put in the 2020 personal income growth percentage into that average, 2021 starts looking pretty bad. So we're anticipating 2021 might look might be 1.25%. Okay, so I did get a chat from Jackie. Jackie, thank you. That there was 600,000 budgeted for the Library Improvement Reserve Fund in 2020, and that was for the Central Lighting Controls Project, I believe. But this year we are opting not to put any appropriation in the Library Improvement Reserve Fund. So thank you for that, Jackie. And then for the property tax caps, which, as you guys know, is the caps that are put on property taxes. If you own a residence in Indiana, you do not pay more than 1% of the gross assessed value of your home. And then there's a 2% cap. And then there's also a 3% cap. For non-residential, it's 2%, and then for commercial is 3%. And so those caps end up being losses to the library because they will put the entire tax rate on the property, and then they'll calculate what that 1% of the gross value is. And then the difference between what the tax rate says they should pay and what that 1% is now becomes the loss to the library. So we have to account for that. So we've projected that at 18% of our levy. In 2019, it was 18%. In 2018, it was 17%. So we're going with the 2019 number. And then we've also projected that we are going to have uncollected taxes in 2021 of about 1%. So we're trying to budget as close to reality as possible. But as I've told you guys, there's so many unknowns right now in this environment that a lot of it is just an educated guess. In terms of our intergovernmental revenue, which is our financial institution tax, the excise taxes, the commercial vehicle tax, those are pretty much on track. We're expecting a slight decline, and we're basing it on the first half of our distributions in 2020. We're also projecting that all of this in-branch revenue will be down about 16%. So that's copy machine revenue, printing revenue, all our events revenue. Let's see what else is on there. Oh, excuse me. Go back up. And all of our, we sell little things like our headset and USB, all those things, catering revenue, are projected to be down by 16%. And this is, again, where we try to make an educated guess and say, what if we were closed for 2 months? What would that look like? And even if we didn't close in 2021 for 2 months, we will probably see reduced door count as we have seen, even though we're open right now. So we use a 16% decrease for those. And then for interest income, we're using our current interest rate, which is significantly less than what it was in February. As you can see, in 2019, we generated $386,000 in interest, and we were very excited about that, very proud of our efforts in terms of our cash flow and making sure that we were investing everything we could. But we're not going to be able to have that same kind of revenue in 2021.
We do have a question for you, Jay, in the chat.
Okay, yes.
I tried to answer it, but it's out of my league.
How is the 1.2% determined? 1.2%. Could you tell me what you're referring to in the 1.2%?
Earlier, you were talking about using a 1.2% as you were thinking about one of the amounts that we had to determine. And I didn't write down.
I think I said 1.25% in terms of the 2021.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So I had said that the 2021, and I might have spoken wrong, and thank you for bringing that up again. The 2021 growth quotient is 4.2%. Mm-hmm. That is based on a 6-year average of the non-farm personal income.
Okay.
So for the past 6 years, what what has it looked like through 2019? Or what has the percentage growth looked like? And it's the same for all local government units. The state determines that number.
Okay.
Then I said that we're projecting a 5% decline from 2019 to 2020. And when you factor that decline of 5% into the average for the next 6 years, for the 2022, and I think that's why I might have misspoken, for the 2022 growth quotient, that will end up, if we do see that 5% decline, it will end up being 1.25%.
Okay, I got you.
Yes, so it could, thank you for asking that question.
That was nice. That was a good catch. That was a good catch, Doctor.
Mhm.
All right. Now, EJ, this is not, it won't need to be approved till next month, correct?
It won't be approved till next month, so you have time to look through. But if you have any questions, send them to me via email so I can answer them or adjust the budget if necessary.
Okay.
Because we'll have a public hearing at the committee meeting.
Okay. In the interest of time, can you move to your item 3, please?
I can, and I actually don't have much else in here because the expenditures are pretty much the same as in June. So, okay, so my next item, and that's pretty quick too. This is our insurance renewal for our liability insurance. We did have our insurance broker come to our finance committee meeting, and he went through this in detail and explained to our finance committee members. But the last year, we did put out a bid for our insurance, and Travelers came in with a really good aggressive bid that was $100,000 lower than our other 2 bids. And so we parted ways with our insurance carrier that we've been with for quite a number of years and had a good relationship with, but we couldn't give up $100,000. So, but this year they're recommending that we didn't bid it out because because you do want to have a relationship with your insurance carrier. You cannot be switching carriers every year. But they also gave us, although our insurance went up by, I think, 9.3%, it's still lower than the bids we got last year. So we still have a pretty good bid, and they did decrease in areas where we had exposure increases to try to work. So we feel pretty good about it. We're asking for you to pass a resolution allowing us to go ahead and sign the contract for the 2020-21 year for our insurance coverage for liability.
And are you recommending this?
I am recommending this, yes.
Okay.
So I'm sorry,
And,
did you already say that you already had severed ties with the other companies
With
before
Hartford.
going to this? Okay.
Yeah, so Travelers was our carrier for the 2019-2020 coverage period. So we had already severed ties with Hartford in 2019. But we didn't want to bid it out again. I was explaining why we're not bidding every year, because we have a pretty good relationship with them so far. We want to establish we want to build more of a relationship. You don't want to be switching carriers every year. But in addition to that, we feel good about the quote that was given to us. So ask for your approval of Travelers as our insurance carrier.
May I ask one more question? And this is not one that I'm going to smile about because I don't understand it. 9.3% increase, 25,000 is still quite a bit. The committee already felt that this was justified?
Yes, and I will show you what that's based on. So we had an increase in our building value, partly because of new buildings, newer, bigger buildings that we had to cover. And then, that was primarily the reason, was the newer, bigger buildings. And then we also had, this was another big area, we had payroll increase of 9% here. And that was because of the compensation study implementation. where we had about a 9% increase in payroll. So because of that, our workers' comp premium went up. And so those were two biggest areas. The inland marine went up, but it's a small portion of our premium base. It went up 12%, so it didn't factor in as much, but the payroll did. And then we have vehicle insurance that went up 5.6% in terms of our exposure. But then there's also market rates went up for property and for vehicle. Vehicle insurance seems to keep going up every year because cars are getting more expensive and because drivers are being more distracted. So those were the reasons. Yes, you're right. 9% does seem like a lot, but our exposure has gone up, so we're getting more coverage in addition to the market rate increase.
Thank you for explaining. I understand.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? Dr. Payne, I'm assuming you want us to vote on this?
Yes, please. So I will move it, in fact.
Yes, if you would please approve Resolution 26, 2020.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion on the matter? Hearing none. Ms. Gilbert, can you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approved.
Dr. Jett,
Approved.
Dr. Matata,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approved.
Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
and Judge Salinas.
Approved. Motion carries.
Thank you.
EJ, are you on number D as well, the briefing report?
Well, actually, John is going to go through that.
Okay.
That presentation is about our proposal to eliminate fines.
Okay.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we have for you a briefing report. We're not asking for action this month, but we do have a briefing report on the topic of potentially going fine-free at Indianapolis Public Library. And so the presentation I'm going to go through tonight is just to kind of walk you through the broad strokes of what that means and what that would imply, and answer any questions you might have. And I know you've got a long agenda, so I'm going to go through this at a pretty steady clip, but please obviously feel free to stop me at any point with questions. I'm happy to answer any questions. So this is the table of contents, basically. So what we're going to talk about tonight, the why, what we're proposing specifically, what we've done in the past, the impacts of going fine-free, who we think it's going to impact, and then the financial question as well. So go ahead, EJ. So to answer the big question first, why do this? To be perfectly clear, it's a barrier for us. We believe it's a form of social inequity. We've kind of looked across the city and found that, you know, fines and fees really do have unequal impacts on different community groups. $10 in fines mean different things to different people depending on things like income level. And we've discovered, we've probably always known, in fact, actually, that fines can be a barrier to access. We have a significant number of patrons who tell us that they just aren't going to come back because they can't. They feel like they can't anyway because they have fines and fees on their cards. We've also kind of come to the conclusion that they're not that effective at getting people to bring the books back, these per day late fees. They don't necessarily incentivize to bring people to bring their books back. Libraries that have gone fine free don't see suddenly a skyrocketing return rate. So we don't really think that they accomplish the purpose that they are intended to accomplish. And finally, lastly, they're not actually fiscally sustainable. We've seen these fines decrease year after year as people transition to ebooks and physical cert goes down in general. So it's getting to the point where eventually we'll have to answer the question of what we're going to do without this money anyway. So we may as well make an intentional decision when we can have some impact. So here's what we're proposing specifically. We're proposing to eliminate the per day late fines that accrue when you have a book that's overdue. We are not proposing to eliminate the charges that would be given if you lose your item or you damage your item so that other patrons can't use it. These items, obviously, we purchase these with public money. They're public property. We have a responsibility to try to get them back on the shelf. So we do need to recover the items. But what we're talking about eliminating is the per day penalty for lateness. As long as we get the book back, that's what we're trying to focus on. So as you can see, my second bullet point, we are trying to increase our focus on just the lost stuff, the stuff that is unavailable to people. And along with this, we are proposing to waive historical debt, you might call it, in the amount of $2 million so that people who have these fines that are standing on their cards now can come back into the library if they're affected by them. And we'll talk about what that $2 million means and how much of that is we could realistically expect to collect anyway. So what are other libraries doing? We would not be the first library to adopt a policy like this. This is a map of all the libraries in the United States that are fine-free currently. The gold triangles are member libraries of the Urban Libraries Council. The gray triangles are not. That's not really a big distinction, but every single triangle does represent a library system that has gone fine-free to varying extents, either in part or in whole. So we did reach out to some of these libraries and just to kind of get a sense of what their experiences has been. And San Francisco actually gave us some extremely good, thorough feedback. So I reproduced a little bit of that for you here. They told us that their feedback from their community has been very positive. They've noticed that the frontline staff has had better interactions. They have to spend less time reconciling cash and doing all that stuff. They did get a bit of feedback from their patrons that were worried that because there are no fines, people are just never going to bring the books back, but they haven't found that to be the case. And they also noted to us that they actually saw a significant jump in the number of new library cards that were created in the year that they went fine-free. They usually see about a 2.2% increase in their library card base, and they saw a 4% jump in the year that they went fine-free. So that's, I mean, when you think of the number of people, 4% is pretty big. It's quite a lot of patrons. So I wanted to give you a sense of what we have done in the past at Indianapolis Public Library to kind of get, to try to work around our own fine policies in some ways. So we actually have taken several stabs at this, and I just wanted to kind of give you some context. We do have a program called Earn and Learn that's targeted to kids. It's essentially, you can read away your fines. It's structured like the summer reading program. You get a certain amount of points for a certain amount of books. And that will reduce your fine total. What we found though, is that fines on children's cards aren't really usually the fault of the kid. The kid is not the one who makes the decision to come to the library. It's the parent who makes the decision whether the kid can come to the library. So we started to ask ourselves, is this really getting at what we want to get at? And does it make sense to have the kid do the work that maybe the parent is more responsible for? We also know that we have parents who simply use their kids' cards to check out their own materials because their cards are in trouble. So we, again, have to ask ourselves, is this a program that is working or not? And I see, okay, the judge is telling me we're pressed for time, so I'll try to pick up the pace here. We have a program called Fresh Start. When you turn 18 and you turn into an adult, we'll wipe away your fines. We have a program called Second Chance, which is geared toward adults, which we allow you to basically make a down payment and then continue a payment plan. And we also have just informal agreements that we strike with patrons if they come into the branch and they know, and they tell us that, hey, my house burned down or my car got broken into, or I had to move really quickly, some kind of life situation happened. We work with people and we create plans. But that does rely on the patron to approach us, which is not necessarily ideal. Not a lot of patrons, or not every patron might realize that they can do that. Go ahead, EJ. So I got just some quick staff feedback on Earn and Learn, which is our main fine relief program. The staff told me that their optimistic guess was that maybe 25% of the kids in the program actually got all the way through it. But like I said, the problem is usually the fines are not the child's fault. And so it doesn't necessarily attack the root issue. And we had one family actually note that, hey, if I wait till they're 18, you mean all their fines go away? And so we kind of discovered that some patrons have learned that, hey, these programs can be kind of played off each other. And so again, it's kind of a patchwork, and we're interested in applying a holistic solution at this point. Go ahead, EJ. So getting into the nitty gritty of who in Indianapolis, who is affected by this debt, the IT team and the accounting team, we all got together and we identified which zip codes our debt is in. And there are actually 734 zip codes with debt in them, which is a bonkers number. But 1 million out of the total 2 million debt is concentrated in the 10 zip codes that you see right there. So that's where the bulk of the debt is. Yeah, right there. So on a map, you can just go ahead and skip 2 slides, EJ. You can just go forward until you see the zip codes in blue. So these are the top 10 zip codes in Indianapolis by debt concentration, the ones that are shaded in blue there. I just want to give you a sense of what that looks like in the city. And then if you go one more slide, EJ, we'll narrow it down to the top 5 zip codes. So those are the top 5 zip codes. These are the ones that we're going to be doing some demographic comparisons on. So you can see that's basically the east side, northeast, southeast, and then the 1 zip code on the west side there. So because we don't collect a lot of demographic information about our patrons, there's actually no field in our catalog system, for example, for us to input race, input income, things of that nature. We can't look at our patrons directly and see what the characteristics are of the folks who've got debt, but we can obviously correlate it with other data sources. So that's what we've done in the next few slides. And again, I know I'm going fast and there's a lot. I'm just trying to be respectful of time. If you just want to stop on the comparison slides, EJ. So on the left are those 5 zip codes with the high concentration of debt. On the right is a map of Indianapolis that I took from the Savvy database that breaks down income by census tract. The lighter the shading of the census tract, the lower the average income of the household in that census tract. So you can see that the zip codes where we have debt are also the zip codes where there's low income. So in my opinion, it's a reasonable assumption that it's more likely that you have debt with the library if you are low income, if you're in a low income household. Obviously not ideal. That's obviously not what we want, but that's what we've got. So, okay, you can move forward, EJ. This is another way of looking at the same data. This is poverty level by census tract. In this visualization, the darker the census tract, the higher the concentration of poverty in that census tract. So you can see the same basic outline, the same basic shape. The census tract with the higher poverty rate are also the census tracts where we have a lot of debt being held by our patrons. And the next visualization, this is a visualization of the concentration of people of color by census tract in Indianapolis. The more purple the census tract, the higher percentage of people of color live in that census tract. And it is, you can see again, it maps pretty neatly, with the exception of 46203. It maps pretty neatly to where we have our debt. So it's not a stretch to say that the debt is held by poor people of color in Indianapolis at the library. So this is a map that Employ Indy has on their website. These are the areas of town that they have identified as most in need of their services. And you can see in those bullet points the way that they've identified these census tracts: employment rate, crime statistics, available community assets, basic demographics, and then poverty level. And just to hammer it home one more time with one last side-by-side comparison, these are the same basic zip codes where we see our debt. Yeah, there you go. So it's pretty cut and dry, in my opinion, where we have the debt versus who lives in those neighborhoods, who's affected by our fine policies. And so if you get in too much trouble with fines, your card can actually be blocked. So we looked at the block rate of library cards in these zip codes. And you can see that on the Near East side, the block rate is 50%, which is astounding. You know, when you think about, we issued these people a library card, now they can't come to the library. And you compare it to other zip codes that have 21%, 22%. It's something that we want to fix for people. So that was a real brief statistical, or excuse me, a demographic overview, I guess I should say. I did want to give just some some anecdotes, human being anecdotes that we had our staff kind of gather. To a person, our staff said, yeah, the main thing we have to talk about to patrons, new and current patrons, is fines. It's the thing that people know about the library. When we go to school events, we have people tell us they can't use the library because they owe money. We have people who, say that they feel ashamed to come into the library because they have debt. They've got a letter from the collection people and they don't feel comfortable anymore coming into the library, even though they could still use the computer, they could still, go to a program, they could still do all kinds of stuff. It just makes people feel bad. And so we're trying to we're trying to attack that feeling too.
John, are you asking for a motion to approve this?
No, not tonight.
Okay.
We'd be asking in
because you got my vote. You got my vote.
Excellent. Good to know. I'll put a tick mark. We did find that about 50,000 of our library cards are currently blocked due to debt, compared to about 160,000 active library cards. And I do have to note that 160,000 number is our pre-COVID number. That's actually declined a little bit, but our normal number of active library cards is about 160,000. And that's library cards that have been used in the last year to check out some material. Go ahead, EJ. Okay, so like I said at the top of the presentation, we are proposing, when we do propose this, we will be proposing that we wipe out some historical debt to the tune of about $2 million, which sounds like a lot. But what we've learned is that the debt that is issued, unless we collect it in that current year, we have a very slim chance of seeing it collected in future years. So this is the rate at which we collect debt as it gets older. You can see in 2018, we only collected 11% of 2019's debt. And then, it goes down and down from there. It just trails off into nothing. It's just not coming back. But it is on people's cards and people remember it's there. And so it is an obstacle for them, even though we're never going to see it. Go ahead, EJ. So this is a breakdown of what we do see in a current year. So this is 2019 fines and fees issued. You can see we collected about 60% of our per day late fines to the tune of about $477,000. And we collected about 17% of our lost book fees to the tune of about $130,000. So to answer the question that's probably on someone's mind, how much money did we collect from late fines in 2019? The answer is about $477,000. So it's a chunk. It's a chunk. You can go forward, EJ. But that chunk is getting smaller and smaller, which is the point that we want to make clear. In 2014, we collected in the ballpark of $900,000 from these kinds of things. And that was only 6 years ago. And now we're down to, like I said, about $477,000. So we see people transitioning to e-materials where there are no late fines, and we see physical circ declining. And so it's just on a glide path that is going down. Go ahead, EJ. So staff spend a significant amount of time spent on talking about fines, collecting fines, managing payment plans. We ballpark it at about 15%, although it's difficult to measure specifically because it's kind of sprinkled in a variety of different interactions. But it's baked into basically all of our interactions. Okay, I will move forward even faster. Suffice to say that we spend a ton of time on it. We think it's 15%, but even if it's only 5%, that's what we're calling our break-even point. We give up that revenue, we get back all this time to spend with staff, for staff to spend with patrons and to have positive relationships with patrons. Questions? That was a lot. I apologize. Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Jett.
All right, it was good information.
I do have a question. I'm wondering, and I'm sure you do have this information, what particular branches those fines are associated with. A couple of them I could just kind of determine based on your map. But also if there is some additional services that we need to consider or conversations we need to have with the patrons of those particular branches regarding this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have that by branch. We can pull that and I can provide that for you in August. And we do plan, if this is, assuming this gets passed, we do plan to communicate to all of our patrons and our non-patrons too, that this change has been made so that we can make people feel comfortable coming back.
I did have one.
I have a.
Sorry. Go ahead,
I'm
Curtis,
sorry, go ahead.
please. No, go ahead, Curtis.
No, I mean, I'm along the same lines as Dr. Jed. I would like to know which branches those impact, as well as it looks like, I mean, there is a considerable amount of lost book fees that are, that are outstanding. And it seemed like I guess the per day fees were collected at a higher rate. So I guess I'm going to have a few questions. I mean, do you mind if I just send those to you, John?
Of course, yes.
I just want to make sure I go over this thoroughly. I agree. It does impact a lot of the, social inequity of a lot of different locations throughout the city, but it does impact, an overall assessment of how much is collected for people who are not even turning anything in versus people who are just assessed late fees.
Absolutely.
I really did like the idea of making sure that we still continue to collect for lost books. Lost books cost a lot, and I think that's an important piece. It will not affect the goal of increasing patron access. I believe that's just a judgment call, of course. I would like to say that I think from raising a lot of children and grandchildren that the read away your fines piece is something that does help children to be responsible. And so, yes, some parents might ride off of that one, but I think it's useful. But the goal of increasing patron access, yeah, it's powerful and it's so important. We need to do that. I recognized the zip codes immediately and knew exactly what you were getting at. So thank you for this. The 3 bullets from the very beginning on that first slide, they make great sense. It's about making sure that we have equity of opportunity.
That's right.
Agreed. Any other comments? Thank you, John. I appreciate this. We'll move on to item 7, Diversity Policy Human Resource Committee. Reverend Robinson.
Thank you so much, Judge, appreciate it. We have a resolution today, resolution 27-2020 for youth protection policy. And I'm going to ask Catherine Lerg if she would come now and present that to us.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
This policy was started quite a while ago. Actually, it was brought to you in March. And this was the result of some meetings that EJ and I and several others had with our liability insurance provider, who recommended that we put something in place so that we have it in policy as how we go about protecting children who visit our buildings. This policy was brought back to you at our committee meeting this month. During that time, there had been some questions that had been asked by Dr. Payne, and I would like to thank her for her input and recommendations on some language that we incorporated into this document to ensure not only that we're providing a safe and secure environment for all of the children who visit our library, but that it also protects us and helps us to deal with incidents of misconduct or inappropriate behavior. And so this includes that to emphasize that we treat all children equitably. And I have included for you both the red line version, so you can see that there was some minor language changes that were incorporated into this document, and then a clean version for you. And I would ask that this be approved and included in our policy manual so we are now better protected as well as our children.
Any discussion on the matter, on the proposal?
Yeah, I have a question, Catherine. These are great changes. Thank you. But what is considered other youth protection training?
When we talked about this, we have a couple of things that will be in place, and that is for our volunteers and staff. And then we have a variety of vendors and contractors who come into our buildings who may have interactions or come in contact with children who are there. Because we have such a different variety of individuals coming into our buildings with potential contact, we didn't want to limit ourselves and on specific requirements, because those vendors and contractors may or may not be able to do certain things. However, and this was as a result of a discussion with our attorneys, so that we made sure that we were still wanting to make sure that our staff and volunteers receive training when it comes to youth protection, and certainly at a minimum that they will be trained on Indiana's mandatory child abuse and neglect reporting requirements, and that they will receive additional training. We can do that for our staff and volunteers, but we wanted to make sure that whatever training we are putting in place for contractors or vendors is something that is discussed during the contracting process and then can be incorporated into the contract.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any additional questions on the resolution from our board? Hearing none and seeing none, is there a motion to approve resolution 27-2020?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman,
Approve?
Mr. Bixby,
Approved.
Dr. Jett,
Approved.
Dr. Murtada,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approved.
Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
and Judge Salinas.
Approved. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Listen, also on the agenda tonight, Judge, we have Resolution 28-2020, and this is the adoption of the annual Minority Women's Veteran Disability-Owned Business Entrepreneur Utilization Goals. And I believe we have Miss Jessica Moore with us tonight, and I'm going to ask her to come and now make the presentation.
Ms. Moore, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Good evening.
So last month, we provided a briefing report on the adoption of minority women, veteran, and disability-owned utilization goals for your consideration. Our hope, last month we did that. We've been working on the disparity study for a year now, and been deeply engaged in that process through the Office of Minority and Women Business Development. And so now that study is done and the results have been released, we've been active with the committee that's been charged with the implementation of the disparity study results in the updated business utilization plan. So in order for us to be in alignment with the goals as outlined by the city, it's important that we adopt the annual XBE utilization goals, so that we are aligned with the city, we're aligned with the economic development strategy of the city, but also ensuring that we are creating inclusive, equitable procurement processes for businesses who want to work with us. So along with the adoption of these goals, we're going to continue to work with the city to outline what our priorities need to be. We're also going to be working internally. We've already met with the finance and facilities to talk about what our internal procurement processes look like. Make sure that we outline those, that they are written, so that we create an internal utilization plan that outlines what our processes look like. And then we are going to take the city's updated business utilization plan and make sure that we are in agreement and alignment with what the city has proposed. And so that has not happened fully yet, but it's going to be the next step. So once we adopt the goals, we fully intend to sit down, we've done this already, but to outline our procurement processes internally so that they are transparent, and so that we can make sure that they're inclusive. And so we're asking for your approval tonight on resolution 28-2020 that would have the Indianapolis Public Library to adopt the City of Indianapolis's annual XBE utilization goals, which are 15% for minority-owned business enterprises, 8% for women-owned business enterprises, 3% for veteran-owned business enterprises, 1% for disability-owned business enterprises.
Judge, this was discussed in our committee, and it was voted on and to move forward to the entire board.
Any questions or discussions from the board?
Yes, I do have some questions. I'm wanting to know, and I'm in favor of this policy, so thank you for all your hard work, Jessica. What I would like to know is that I looked at this document and it said in terms of the procurement goals that they fall in these 4 areas: public works, professional services, goods and supplies, and other services. So I want to know if we will be given the opportunity to understand what exactly with regard to the library fits in those areas. And also, given the goals, what specifically will we need to do to change what we have in place right now so that we are becoming, that we are in more alignment with the XBE goals?
So yes, ma'am. So as far as what fits in those areas, yes, we can absolutely provide that to you. Those are areas that are broken down by the city's Office of Minority and Women Business Development. Those are kind of how they've categorized them. So we can absolutely take some time to outline how each of our procurement efforts falls within each of those. So yes, absolutely. And then to your second question about what we're going to be doing, that is exactly why we're meeting to talk about how we make our procurement processes more transparent and outline what our current processes look like internally. So the goal is to outline, this is what our processes currently look like. This is what we are currently doing. These are the things that need to change to make it more inclusive, because we're not doing this, or we're not doing it as well as we need to be doing that. And so it's myself, staff members from our finance department, and staff members from our facilities department, because those are the places where most of our procurement happens. It's where the significant dollars happen. And so we've already sat down to talk about what we need to do in terms of outlining what those processes look like. And then we're going to take the city's business utilization plan, and we're going to take those best practices that they've identified, and we're going to put those into our internal processes. We are also working with the OMWBD, which is the Office of Minority and Women Business Development. So we're working in partnership with them now about what best practices look like. And so they are constantly giving us feedback about making recommendations, helping us identify businesses to work with. We're also going to be adjusting some of our outreach. And so in February, we had the professional services meeting, which was an opportunity for businesses to learn about what opportunities were coming up. The goal is to have 2 of those a year. And so in the fall, the hope is to have a session so that businesses can learn about how to work with us. Who are we? What staff members are active in the library? What do our processes look like? If we want to work with you, what steps do we need to take? So that'll be more of an informational. And then we would do a similar meeting again after the first of the year, so that those businesses can also learn about, now here are all the opportunities that are coming up for this fiscal year that you might have the opportunity to engage in. We're also right now working on outlining what all of those procurement opportunities are, and we're breaking them down by quarter so that we can be forecasting what opportunities will exist and then making that information available to businesses so that they can access it. And if they have questions about it, they can contact us in advance so that they can figure out how they can become more involved with some of our work too. And then we're going to continue to partner with the city on a lot of their outreach events. All of it is mostly virtual right now, but if they do the reverse trade fair, we'll be there. If they want to partner with us, we'll be there. And so just making sure that we're developing relationships in the right places and answering questions and developing relationships with new vendors and folks who feel like they may want to work with us. So those are just some of the things that we're working on right now.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. It would be good to know some sort of time frame also, because I would imagine some of these decisions will affect our budgetary process, and it might be some immediate decisions that we need to make with regard to
Yes.
the budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions from the board?
Just a very brief one. We have the numbers, the percentages right now where we have, like you said, we're going to get to 15%. We want to get to this other one. Do we have the baseline? Did you share that with us already?
I don't recall that I did. And
I don't
actually,
think so.
I don't think so. And I'm happy to send that to you in terms of where we are now. We do track, we track our goals monthly and report those to the city. We track them on a monthly basis, but we also have a year-to-date tracking. And so the gentleman in finance who does that monitoring for us and Garrett have been working on developing a tool that will allow us to be able to produce that information very quickly so that you can have it and we can do some comparisons. And so I will make sure you get that tomorrow.
I think that would be very useful. That way we can actually see that we're, moving along to get it. But this is where we started. This is where we're going. And we might be able to brag on ourselves.
That would be nice.
That would
The
be
goal
nice.
is for the tool to be ready in August. That's our goal. So we've been working on the tool with Garrett for a few months now. And so we hope to have that done to be able to share with you soon.
Do we have additional questions from any of the board?
Very good, Jessica.
All right, is there a motion to approve resolution 28-2020?
So moved.
Second. All right, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Angie, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman,
Approved.
Mr. Bigsby,
Approved.
Dr. Jett,
Approve.
Dr. Matata,
Abstain. I thought we were asking for more information.
Okay, she abstains. Next person.
all right. Yes, Ms. Payne,
Approve.
Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
and Judge Salinas.
Approved. Motion carries 6 with 1 abstention. Reverend Robinson, one before you go to your next item, in the interest of time, we do have one more item that needs to be voted on. Do any of the board members have to leave?
If you need to switch it around.
I was asking, does anybody have to leave? Because I want to make sure all the board is here for all the votes. Seeing none, Reverend Robinson, you're up.
Okay, great. Listen, board, thank you so much. First of all, Jessica, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Jess.
Thank you so much we work closely together on this committee. On the Diversity Policy and Human Resource Committee, which is a very robust committee, we were also charged with looking at the CEO's evaluation, and we've had meetings to discuss that, and we've come up with a plan moving forward. And so tonight we want to give you an update on what we have been discussing in our meetings. Listen, in an effort to enhance and expand our CEO evaluation process, we took in consideration what we've been hearing from the board. And so we were trying to expand it. Thank you so much. And we wanted to create something similar to a 360 to a certain degree. And so we have expanded the process by not only doing the evaluation that similar to what we have done in the past, but we want to include this year the evaluation of the EC community, the executive committee for the library, and those members will be a part of the evaluation, which are the Chief Financial Officer, the Director of Collection Management, Director of Communications, Director of Facilities, Director of Human Resources, the Director of Information Technology, Director of Public Services, and Strategic Planning and Assessment Officer, and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. They will all be a part of the CEO evaluation, and they will have input. There's a tool that they will use very similar to what we'll be using, but it'll address certain things that are more related to what they do on a day-to-day basis and their interaction with the CEO. Also, we want to we're planning to include the president of the Staff Association and the president of the union representative as a part of the evaluation process also. So all of those different entities will do their evaluation. We'll be interviewing and talking with the Staff Association president as well as the union rep, and we will take in consideration of that, and then we will compile a final report that we will present to the board of our findings from those entities. We've also expanded the tool that we used last year. We added another section that deals with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so that will be something that the board also will get a chance to speak to and address. Now, part of, as you know, and we're hoping that you'll continue to do it, and some are more, and I say this, really, in a positive way, but we do have opportunity to make comments and add input to our evaluation tool. And I think you have it in front of you. This is a tool that we used last year. These are the areas that you get to score our CEO on, as well as you get to add comments and make recommendations or whatever you like to do in that regard. So so we've expanded it. We've included more people. We've included more leaders from the library. We've included the staff association leader as well as the union leader, and we've also expanded the questions to include diversity, equity issues as well. Also, I don't know if you can see, we have always in the last few years been running late with, like November, trying to get everything done. And I don't think it's given everyone a chance to really do the evaluation. So we have come up with a timeline that will start in September so that everyone will have a chance to go through the process. And I don't know where that's, yes. So, so we're starting on September 15th. If you can see, the CEO will complete and submit the performance assessment to the board, her performance assessment to the board. And then it starts from there. Board members will complete. So we have time in September to complete evaluations. Executive committee will complete their evaluations. The staff and association and union reps will be interviewed, and we'll go through that process. Personnel chair will summarize in writing all that we've discovered, and I may need a little bit more time. Our committee may need a little bit more time than October 15th. But then by the first part of November, we'll hold an executive session to go over all of this and get feedback from the board. And then we will wrap that up at the beginning of December with recommendations as it relates to the performance rate and payroll issues for the coming year. So we won't be running this year if we follow this schedule like we have been in the last few years, with everything kind of happening in November, late October, November, and rushing to try to get everything done. So I think it's a very good schedule. It gives us time to really address things and give you time to really give your input to this process and give your time and consideration to this process. Judge, that's our update.
And this came out of committee, or this approval, everyone was in favor of it, right?
Yes, yes, it was
okay.
Totally, everyone was in favor. And I thank everybody for their hard work, their input, their suggestions, and we were able to just get a lot of this done. So thank you so very much.
Okay. Any questions at the moment? We will have more information as we go forward.
Right. Next meeting, we'll be giving you additional information because we'll be closer. In August, we'll give you different additional information because we're going to get ready to kind of begin the process in September.
All right, we'll move on to number 8, Facilities Committee, Dr. Jett.
I have a question.
I have a
about
question.
this process.
Go ahead, Dr. Jett, then Dr. Mutada.
Yeah, this is not a 360 type review. I mean, there's no such thing. There's a 360 review, or you're not doing a 360 review. But also the information gathered by, provided by the staff association rep and the union rep, they need to have time to survey their membership and to get input. And then also the information coming from them, those two, because it should not fall on those two individuals, because you also need to remember that they are also employees being evaluated. And then also the information coming from the executive staff, all of that information needs to come directly to the board before we actually do our own assessment. We need that information. And I noticed that in your timeline, that information is being provided at the same date. September 30th seems to be like this, sort of catch-all time as their information is being provided. And so that then doesn't allow us to take into consideration the input, which is part of the process. So we need to kind of rethink that process, to rethink that strategy.
Okay, I disagree. It was not part of our process. We wanted to not be influenced. We wanted the board of directors to not be influenced, the trustees, by any other thing than our own interaction with our CEO. So we will have a chance to review that. That's why we're doing it early, what they've done. But we wanted ours to be separate and not influenced by anything other than what our own interaction as a trustee board with our CEO. And then we're going to look at what the EC committee, their recommendations, their thoughts, their feelings, their interactions with the CEO. And then we're going to compile that together and make a recommendation and report to the board for their.
It's not about influence. It's about having valuable information to make rational assessments. That's what a 360 does. You gather all of the input from all of the stakeholders and the parties, and then you use that information to go through an assessment process. I'm not understanding this influence.
This is not a 360, as you said. So we were trying to do the very best we thought it with the information that we had, as we are still researching the 360 for our library. And that's also something that I left out, but I was going to share that in our next meeting, that we want to continue to study the 360 for our library. We want to involve also that whole conversation about a 360 with, as we begin to interview the next CEO for our library. We want that to be a part of the interview process, and that conversation to be ongoing to get their input as well into that. And so we can make a determination about that process for the next CEO of our library.
Okay, so now we're having a conversation about a succession plan, which is a whole different type of endeavor. But we've been talking about
that's part of our charge as well.
2016 is when we've been.
As well. So we just wanted to begin to look at our new CEO, and when we having those interviews and those conversations, that came out of our committee, not just me, that came out of the committee, that they thought that we ought to be able to have this conversation about a 360. Some who we might be interviewing have had experiences with that in their libraries. Some may not have had, but we will get a chance to kind of know how they feel, and even if they've had experience in having that with the library.
Well, the bottom line, this is not a 360 evaluation. It's as close to we thought that we wanted to come. Dr. Mutada?
Oh, thank you. My question was similar, but not the exact same one. Either we're doing a 360 or not. There's not a 360-like evaluation. And I think that's that. And when you're in the language that
So
in the
let me,
language of what
let me
you,
clarify that. It is not a 360, but this is the process that came out of our HR committee. So does that,
I understood what you said. What I was saying was in the text, it said 360 like. And so I think that's the language that's problematic, to say 360 like process.
okay.
And so that
So
piece was,
we can correct it.
I think that'd be useful.
Yes,
Also,
thank
I'm
you.
very concerned about the evaluation of the union rep. I think that needs to be looked at very carefully. It's a precarious road to travel on, and I hope we can have some further discussion about that. I'm mindful of our time, but that's one you have to be very careful about.
Yeah,
And
that-
Dr. McCarter, I would love to get your input on that.
Absolutely.
Any further questions for
I'll
Ms.
reach out to
Reverend
you.
Robinson? Okay.
Dr. McCarter, I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
All right. Now we'll go to the Facilities Committee. Dr. Jett.
I don't have any items.
Okay. We'll go to item number 9, the Strategic Planning Committee. Dr. Jett as well.
Garrett.
Hello, good evening, board members.
Good evening.
All right, so I know we've been on for a while, so I will.
Almost 2 hours.
I want to give this its due time, but I'll go through it quickly and then field any questions. So the first item, item 9A, are the draft values, IndyPL values, and their definitions that were developed by the IndyPL Strategic Plan Steering Committee that consists of about 30 staff members from across the organization, managers, non-managers, all the different divisions that make up our organization. So just a really quick review, these values were determined from a 2-step survey process. The first, where staff were offered 54 values and then an option for an other. So we got all the feedback from 421 respondents. Then the second step was a ranking of the top 10 of the aspirational and core values. And so that's what you see in front of you here. And then the planning committee they were directed to develop definitions for these values that were specific to thank you. That were specific to IndyPL, so that IndyPL staff could see themselves and their work in these core and aspirational values. And then a little bit further down, there's some commentary about our mission and vision statements with some additional notes. So the highlighted for all are the 2 spots of possible changes to our current mission and vision statements. These were also asked about in the surveys, and over 3/4 of the IndyPL staff felt like our current mission and vision statements were sufficient and appropriate to help guide the organization for the next 3 years. And so wanted to know if the board had any questions about the value definitions that were developed in the steering committee. If there's any additional commentary or direction about the mission and vision statements. This bolded information under the vision and mission statements were just some additional things for consideration that came of our discussions on whether or not we wanted to incorporate those ideas or concepts into the mission and vision statements. So are there any questions about the values, the definitions of the values, or the mission and vision statement and the addition of the for all in the statements?
I just like the idea of including the language of lifelong learning. I think that's such a powerful statement. It speaks to our being able, I think that's from the New York Public Library one. And I really do like that as a part of our commitment to what we do.
Okay, thank you.
So Dr. McCarter, you're saying that you want that included?
Yes.
Okay, so it's already in there in the mission statement. So we'll definitely leave that in there. Or is there other language around that you're suggesting, Dr. Murtada?
Well, in the New York statement, it says inspire lifelong learning. And we say we build communities. I like the idea of inspiring lifelong learning. We build communities and inspire lifelong learning.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I should have been more clear.
that's okay. All right, thank you. Any other comments? Are there any, because these values, these are the draft form, of course, and so unless the board has any issues with those will be our official values that we try and contextualize our programming and our initiatives with over the next 3 years, particularly the aspirational values.
I just have one last one, and I really would appreciate just a minute to share why I think it's important. Our communities, many of our communities are already communities. And so we don't build the community, we can strengthen the community by the work that we do. And when we say we're building the community, it's almost like we don't see the strengths or the assets in our communities already. So it's something that really try to move away from the deficit language that we do it, but that our communities, we're supporting the ongoing strengthening of our communities. Just a thought.
Very good point, Colin.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we do need to emphasize that. And also, I just want to thank the committee and the fact that that the staff has had valuable input, because I do think that the staff voice should be centered in the strategic plan and be foremost in sort of guiding the work of the organization. So thank you.
Okay, so no other comments, then we can move on to the next item. So next item doesn't have anything in your packet. Item 9B is just a general update on the community survey, the strategic plan community survey. So that survey has been distributed via our patron emails, social media, website, so including our blog, Facebook. We've had some paid media. We engaged over 700 community partners and have sent the email with the links out a couple of times to those community partners, asking them to distribute as much as possible and asking them to further distribute those surveys to not only for them to take it, but to share it with their friends, their family, their colleagues, their neighbors that live in Marion County, because we want to get as many responses as possible. And as of about 7 p.m. tonight, we had 4,085 survey responses.
That's good.
So that's very, very large. I mean, it's a low response rate, if you will, but it's a very large number of surveys. So I think that's the most input we've probably had on something in this vein. So we have a lot of data. It closes on 7/31, and then we'll have to see if there are any paper surveys that need to be entered. But we'll probably end up around 4,300 total survey responses to look at. That will help influence our priorities as we develop the plan. Any questions about the survey?
I just want to, you're seeing thumbs up and hands applauding in part because, the committee really did say we wanted to be able to widely distribute it. And Judge Salinas, I know you want us to hurry up and get this along, but I got to give kudos. And I think I see Ray's thumb up and other folks' thumbs up. The wider distribution that you worked with Terry and the committee really has made a difference. So thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm going to concur. It's been, I like the way that we're going on this.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay, thank you for that. And thank you for the committee for their support and Dr. Jett. Appreciate that. So the next item, item 9C, next steps in the process. So I can either share my, there we go, okay.
There you go.
Okay, so I shared this with the committee a little while ago, and then of course it made the board package. So this just sort of outlines the things that are sort of remaining in the process so far. So item 1 has been taken care of as of 7/13 is when this was dated. Item 2 has been taken care of. Item 3 we're discussing tonight, and so I'll take our conversation as the values and their definitions are finalized, and maybe just a small few tweaks based off the suggestions of the board on the mission and the mission statement. And then, so as of the 31st, I'll have all the survey data so we can work on 4. And then we really start building in item 5. We start taking all the information that we have, the research, the patron surveys, the staff surveys, the values, the mission and vision statements, to figure out what our strategic priorities are going to be, and then the strategic results around those. Item 6 is the overall approach to the plan. And this is something that I want to make sure we're on the same page as. There's a strategy map that I've been sort of promoting that sort of is a one-page snapshot of all the important things of the plan. And I just want to make sure that we're either on board with that, or if we want to pivot into a slightly different design, that we get that figured out relatively quickly. So I know what sorts of inputs and things I need to figure out to go into that sort of one-page reference. So, and then based off the board, the committee discussions about creating a draft plan based off the content. So the general content, the priorities and things like that, sharing that with a select group of community partners to obtain feedback to make sure that we're on point with what the community has told us they need and want from us, and then using that feedback to finalize the content and getting that content approved by the board. And then we'll work with communications once we have that final approval. We'll work with the communications department to actually make the nice, shiny, glossy document that we'll share with the community, with the patrons that we'll have in our branches, and so on and so forth. Does anyone have any questions generally about that, the remainder of the process? And we're still aiming for having the content for sure in place by January 1. Some of it depends on how quickly communications can turn around as far as getting out the shiny, glossy, finalized version. But so we obviously want to make sure they have enough time to do all their Q&A and getting the content right. So I don't want to put the onus on them. So it just really depends on when we approve it, and that sort of runway they need to get the public consumable out. Any questions? Nope. Okay. And now,
yeah, I'm sorry, I do have one question.
yes, ma'am.
How long do you think it'll take you to analyze the survey data once you receive it?
So we actually have one of the internal steering committee on Monday the 3rd. Is that the 3rd? For a second, 3rd. And so I'm going to work over the weekend actually to get some sort of preliminary numbers so we can help to contextualize that conversation. So I think I can do it pretty quickly, at least with getting sort of the high level numbers, the high level, the predominant themes that we're seeing and things like that. And the survey was really designed to give us quick returns on that feedback. So there's narrative pieces to a lot of questions, but there's also check boxes. So we can get the counts of how many people checked they wanted more healthcare information or wanted more literacy programming and things like that. So I think we can get the preliminary data relatively quickly.
Okay, good. Then you and we can get together and decide when the next committee meeting will take place after you have that data. And then
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right, Jared, you got the stats now?
Yes, everyone's favorite, right? Okay, I can pull it up, or whoever was controlling the screen earlier, they can do it.
If you can summarize that, Jared, if you don't mind.
It might be easier for you to share, Garrett. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Is everyone looking at, wait a minute, I'm still in the wrong place here. Let me scroll down. Okay, is everyone looking at the stats?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so pulled some stats. Some of these are as of the end of June, but some of them are mid-July stats. So this first graphic just shows our physical circulation. Obviously, you can see the big dip that occurred because we were closed, and then we moved on to curbside. And so we're picking back up a little bit. Of course, our circulation is down because we were closed. eCirc was something we really wanted to concentrate on. So there's a handful of graphics on eCirc. So you can see our eCirc numbers are pretty high. The database drop off in the summer is expected. But if you look at our year-to-date eCirc, it's really high, 1.3 million. And if you look at our year comparison, so the blue line's 19, the red line's 20, we are significantly above where we were at this time last year and have been for the entire year. And part of that is, we've really focused on developing our e-materials because of COVID. We want to make sure we were offering as much as possible. And so we've made shifts in our collection management to make more things available. And so that is reflective in these numbers here. Here's how our year-to-date physical circ breaks down across sort of the 4 areas in the data. So IndyPL, museum, school, and special. Of course, the majority is IndyPL. But you can see our IndyPL is 1.6 million for physical circ, and our eCirc is 1.3 million. So it's actually kind of keeping pace with our physical circ. Count of active cardholders. So John referenced this number a little earlier and talked about how this number is historically had been about 160 for the IndyPL number. And so as the board knows, we moved to a new integrated library system this year. And so some of the numbers that we look at, they aren't reflected the same ways they were in the old system. So our active cardholder reports previously included cards that were authenticated. So they used them online, but didn't necessarily check something out, is my understanding. So you have to use your library card to access certain offerings, even if you don't check something out. This number doesn't include that authentication any longer. It's not built into what Polaris reflects in our active cardholders. So we have some resetting of sort of data definitions to go on to. Total PC hours by month. So January and February are really strong. Of course, we started to slow down significantly in March. We were closed. And then we had, essentially no data for April and May because we were closed and not using the branches. And then June, we see a little tick there. So we'll continue to monitor that, monitor the number of uses and sessions that we have. Total wireless sessions. So year to date, we closed, we made the decision shortly thereafter to make our wireless more, or continue to make it available after hours. And I think possibly, if I remember correctly, we even made the signal a little more powerful. At least we discussed doing that so it could reach a little further. But you can sort of see how, especially going into the latter part of May, we started to climb up in terms of how many wireless sessions we're seeing out there from our patrons. And then our adjusted door count comparison. So this shows comparison between last year and this year. Just as a refresher, adjusted door count is an adjustment I make to the door count because any door counter you get, you have all kinds of possibilities of overcounting. If the sun hits the door counter wrong, it can rapidly overcount, or say the battery dies, the patron bumps it, becomes unplugged. And so I look at historical numbers to try and adjust for when we see variations like that to give us a truer sense of what the actual door count likely was in the event of really bad data. And so that's what the adjusted part of the door count is. So you can see the difference there. And we're starting to come back up a little bit there in June. And then this is our programs delivered and our program attendance per the activities database. This doesn't include our live virtual data, which is housed in another spot. That's actually something communications provides. So there's additional data to this, but that data is going to take me some time to parse through and be able to provide that. So I think that was the last one. That was a lot of data.
Yes, it was.
But we wanted to let you guys know what was going on. Does anyone have any questions about any of those data points or anything like that?
All right, thank you, Jared. Dr. Jett, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, Mr. Robinson or TD, you need to leave, you said, so your foundation report?
After the foundation report.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Again, I would like to give the Indianapolis Public Library Foundation report. This month, the Library Foundation received a grant from the Lilly Endowment to expand the library's collection of racial equity material. It will allow the library to purchase 4,000 copies of 180 titles in various formats, including material for 100 schools that participated in the shared system and or Access 360. The grant also includes funding to help publicize the expanded collection. We appreciate the collection management team quick legwork, which enabled us to submit the request in a timely manner. To develop this book list, collection management received valuable feedback and resources from Jessica Moore, Nick Shell Hayes, Dr. Pat Payne, and Dr. Terry Jett. We shared the library's book list with Indiana Humanities, which received a separate Lilly Endowment grant to help libraries throughout the state augment or create collections that advance racial equity. Foundation thanks 185 donors who made gifts last month. The following are our top corporate and foundation contributors, and if you should have an opportunity to thank these donors, we would be grateful. Bonds and Thornburg, First Merchants Bank, Indiana Education Savings Authority, Indiana Humanities, Indiana University Health, Miller Summer Mission for Children's Fund, Rich Charles, and the Glick Fund. Also, under program support, this month we are proud to provide funding for the following library programs. All programs are system-wide unless otherwise noted. For children's program, the Pocket Park Story Walk, preschool package programs, Read to Me, Please, and Teen Advisory Group. Cultural programs that the foundation helps support: adult book discussions, art for families, branded giveaways, Center for Black Literature and Culture, concert series, youth art services, ISCR lecture series, preschool package programs, Rainbow Read Book Club, Snacks and Stories, Teen Spaces, Trunk or Treat, Teen Amy Club, and the YA Authors Visit. Under collections and IT Book Club in a Bag, and also lifelong learning, coding, and tech for adults. Judge, that concludes my report, and just want to congratulate the foundation for getting the grant for the collection, equity collection.
Thank you, Reverend Robinson. Any questions of Mr. Robinson on the foundation? Thank you, and I know you have to leave. I appreciate that. We'll move now to our CEO report. Jackie?
Thank you, Judge. The first item that I have for you this evening is Resolution 29-2020. This is a confirming resolution on our finances, personnel, and travel for the last month. I would submit it to you for your consideration and approval this evening.
Any questions or
Pretty routine.
comments? Pretty routine. Any questions? Is there a motion to approve Resolution 29-2020?
So
moved.
Is there a second? I know there was a second in there. Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion or questions on Resolution 29-2020? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Biederman,
approve.
Mr. Bixby,
Approved.
Dr. Jett,
Approve.
Dr. Matata,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approve.
Reverend Robinson,
Approve.
Thank you. Judge Salinas.
Approved. Motion carries. Jackie?
Okay, the next item I have for you is an announcement that we're very excited about. We heard just a few moments ago about the foundation helping us to purchase over 4,000 copies of books on various aspects of racial equity, diversity, and other aspects of our culture that we know people in the community want to read about. We are taking this one step further and actually organizing a shared read for all of our employees. This is one of those situations where everyone reads the same book. And so we have asked a group of staff to select an appropriate book for us to read and share together. And that was determined by Jessica and John Helling and Deb Lambert all worked together. And the book that has been chosen is called Stamped. This is by Jason Reynolds and Ibram Kendi. And we will have many, many copies of this available, and staff will be asked to read it and participate in a number of organized activities where they will be able to discuss the book. There will be discussion sessions. Staff will be encouraged to literally take notes, write down questions, have opportunities to really explore what they are reading in the book and how it is helping them better understand many of their own perspectives, perhaps lack of understanding about aspects of racial history here in the United States. The hope is that by sharing the same book, all of us, even though we come from very different places, we will in fact be able to cultivate a more common and shared understanding of the history here in our country. So you see the book here. I think, Joe, are you set up to show us this real quick video? It is very quick, Judge.
I am. Give me just a second.
I promise. And if any board members would like to join us, we can make that happen. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I miss seeing you all from time to time around our various buildings, but I do want to express my great appreciation for all that you are doing to give great library service to our patrons here in Indianapolis. This is a really important time in our city and our country. We have so much to process right now and so much to learn if we're going to grow in our understanding of the issues of racism that have divided us, and frankly, that still disadvantage many in our communities. The changes that we need require a collective effort. And as a library, we know the power of sharing a book when you're trying to all have the same ideas about something. Needless to say, we're going to ask you to read this book on company time. It's okay. We want you to. And we're going to have a lot of dimensions to this program that are going to give you a chance to discuss what you're reading, to ask questions, to understand how it's going to work, and what it is you're actually learning as you work your way through the book.
We are super excited for the opportunity to read Stamped by Dr. Ibram Kendi and Jason Reynolds. Stamped is a great introduction for us as we begin to understand some foundational history of race in America. It puts us all on the same page, and it gives us an opportunity to establish some collective understandings as we begin to engage further in our conversations around race here at the library in Indianapolis, and including how it shows up for us as individuals. So who does this involve? Every library staff member will be participating in this library book discussion. That includes part-time and full-time library staff members. As we embark on this journey, we understand that many of us are engaging in this conversation at different points. For many of us, conversations and experiences around race are common. We've been having these conversations our entire lives. But there may be others of us who this is new. It might be uncomfortable. And we recognize that we are all entering into this conversation at different stages. So we want to give a special thank you to all the staff members who gave their input as we were developing the program and identifying the content that will be included. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. We also want to say a special thank you to the Library Foundation for all of their support, including all of the work that they did to acquire the Lilly grant that gave us access to additional titles around race and anti-racism. And thank you to the Collection Management Department for all of your work in pulling that together. So we look forward to coming together around one book as one library.
Thank you for showing that, Joe. We will launch this this next week, and it will culminate in October at our All Staff Day, where we will actually have a series of related discussions. We'll be using some outside facilitators to meet with various groups of staff across the system between now and then. So if you're interested in reading it with us, let us know and we'll get you a copy.
Yes. Absolutely. I think it's a great idea. We've done that over the years at IUPUI. And if we as a board are also involved in the reading, it can be very useful.
Okay. All right. The last thing I have is something that's a result of a request from the judge who thought perhaps this was a good time to get a little bit of a recap of how COVID has impacted us since we started talking about all of this back in March. And so you have this in your packets. I'm not going to try to read it to you all in the interest of time, but I have provided you with a review of the timeline that we have been through, going all the way back to March when we thought we were doing well to just understand what the virus even was and what it meant to have a safe workplace. And you can see, of course, that we really ramped down our services. And then as the summer came forward, we thought we could start to do a little bit more, and we've been trying really hard to stay safe. A lot of credit goes to all of our staff for their discipline in constant hand washing, constant cleaning, trying really hard to make sure that we're doing the good stuff you have to do to be safe. There's a number of bullet points here just to recap for you the impact of this journey on our staff. And we have worked very hard to continue to pay employees when we were not open. Employees have stepped up to try to work at home. We did have a few more employees retire than I think we might have had in a normal year's time period. It is important to remember that we had 82 employees eligible to retire as of May 1st. We have had an older workforce, and that older workforce is having an impact on us as we go through this whole COVID journey. I think it's important also to recap the accommodations that we've made for staff. There are a variety of different leaves that are available. And so we have, in fact, this is on the next slide, Joe. We have, in fact, granted 68 different leaves for staff members who have requested them. At the current moment, there are 35 people out on various approved leaves right now as the result of either the governor's executive order or some aspects of the expanded FMLA and ADA. Some people who were on leave have come back. We have over 70 employees who have been approved to work at home, either full-time or intermittently. That has required us to allow staff to take equipment home if necessary in order to perform their work, especially if they are using specialized software or computers. In our buildings, we have modified workstations to try to reduce density. Because of people working at home, that's a little bit easier to do because there's fewer people to juggle. We have also made sure that employees who need to miss work for any sort of testing are given paid time to do so. We have now begun analyzing the impact of the return to school on our workforce. And we do know that in addition to people who are on leave already, we have at least 62 additional employees who have reported having school-age children. We now are going to have to assess what their accommodations may be and what the impact on us could be if those people need to stay home. This could have a significant impact on our ability to provide the services as we currently know and schedule them. We have, as you heard over the weekend, one employee who tested positive. This employee's exposure was identified as being from their roommate. And you saw over the weekend the various steps that we took to notify staff and the press. We've been very careful to follow our protocol about notification in order to get as much information as we can to the people who need to know, while honoring the various HIPAA protections that we have to be sensitive to. A question was asked about how the public responded to this announcement that we had a positive case. And we had over 75 responses on social media last night and early this morning. They were extremely positive. People were very appreciative that we had been so transparent in discussing what had happened and what we were doing about it. The couple of pictures here just to give you a feel for some of the modifications that we've made in our buildings. I know many of you visit our libraries regularly and you know these things, but I just thought we'd show a couple pictures. Here you see the plexiglass shields that we have installed. There's a couple of different varieties. We spent $56,000 to acquire 300 and some plexiglass shields to be put throughout all of our buildings in order to provide an extra layer of protection for our staff and our patrons. In addition to that, we have documented so far another $82,000 that's been spent on personal protective equipment, on extra cleaning, signage, legal review of policies and practices, and of course, the sanitation supplies that we have increased throughout our buildings. We have removed approximately 75% of our computers, chairs, and tables from public areas in order to reduce the density of people in our buildings and encourage the social distancing. You see on the floor the little markers for 6 feet distances, the stand here kind of thing like you see in the grocery store. We've done that through our buildings. And where possible, we've also identified one-way traffic patterns to try to reduce face-to-face exposure from people. The communications department has done a great job of making a wide array of signage available. Each manager can go through the menu and select the signs and posters that they think will work with their patrons. If we have time for it, I could show you this video, but actually I think I'm going to suggest you go onto our website and watch this video yourselves, because I know it is almost 9 o'clock. This is a video that was filmed up at East 38th Street, helping patrons know what life's going to be like when you come back to the library. And it's a great video that our staff produced, and I think you'll find it very helpful. A couple of other, okay, there it is. You can find it on the web page that actually talks about services reopening, okay? And this is Kim Brown Harden up at East 38th Street. We also made a number of other changes that have had quite an impact on services. You see some of them summarized here, and including the fact that the foundation actually had to stop receiving donations for the book sale for quite a while. They are now accepting them under some limited circumstances, but they are being quarantined, just like all of our other books are. So that's a very fast and very high level comment for you about what we have been doing. We're pushing hard to support e-learning, trying to get more library cards into the hands of the students so they're equipped for using our resources as part of their e-learning experience. And as you heard earlier, we have in fact canceled all of the remaining large weddings to stay in compliance with the health department's rules. So that's a high level snapshot for you of where we've been.
I do appreciate that, Jackie. Thank you. Any questions of Jackie on that? Seeing none, Jackie, does that conclude your report?
It does. Thank you very much.
If any board member has any items, future items, please email me that you want to be considered by the full board. I apologize for going this far over. I realize I do value you guys' time. Our next meeting is on Monday, August 24th. It is scheduled for Pike Branch, but if things don't change and if there's not a big enough area for us to be there, then I'm going to recommend it, for us to be in a location, maybe Central Library, that has a big enough area to accommodate public and then us board members social distancing. At least that's my preference. I don't know how the board feels about that. But if, if they allow us to do virtual, I want to go there, that route. Dr. Payne.
So you'll make accommodations for those who do not wish to be in person?
Yeah, first of all, if the governor says, you know, if the order's done and we have to be in person, then my recommendation is these libraries are beautiful and everything, but the meeting rooms, they don't accommodate that much. So my recommendation would be a large meeting room like Central Library has. And also I did tell Jackie that I wanted the capability to keep the YouTube aspect of it. So the public that would want to observe and stuff and doesn't want to go out can still do it. Does that make sense, Dr. Payne, or no?
Huh?
Does that make sense? I mean,
yeah, but I'm saying for those of us who are not ready to start coming out public meetings.
Yeah, listen, I'm gonna find out. And Russell, I wanted our lawyers to push for virtual. Okay, if they have any input, our lobbyists. Okay, I'm the same way. I'm dealing with this stuff from my workplace, and we're locked down as well. So, but again, our next board meeting is August 24th at 9 o'clock. Technically, it is set to be at the Pike Library bench.
As you know, Judge, that order expires on August the 4th from the governor, and we expect that we'll hear something late this week on an extension of that.
I appreciate that, Russell. Thank you. Guys, it's been amazing. 2.5 hours, not job, or in 1 minute too. You guys take care. God bless and stay safe. I'll see you guys or hear you guys in the future. Adios. Bye-bye.
Thank you.